sending the thin mints and the skinny minis and not sending enough fat people like her on a trip she really wanted to go to, it seems like.
You want to make it about you. This is not about you.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Katie, and for those of you who don't know me, I used to weigh 360 pounds, and I've lost 180 pounds and kept it off for years now. And on this channel, we will discuss weight loss, weight maintenance, nonsense I see online about body positivity and fat acceptance, my experiences with all of that, and well, anything else I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and let's get into today's video. So today I have several TikToks from our friend to the channel, MMFR, or Mighty Morphin Fash. And she's got some thoughts on something that just happened recently at Coachella. So I figure we'll go ahead and watch this together, and I'll give you my reactions along the way.
Let's talk about how these are the people that Torrid, a brand that serves plus size people and goes up to a size 30. This is the group that they invited to Coachella.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and take a look? And yep, it appears that they are plus sized, or at the very least can wear Torrid sizing. Because, yeah, they do go up to a size 30, but they start at a size 10, so... And, oh, yeah, this is posted from Torrid's own TikTok, so it pretty much confirms that they're all wearing Torrid merchandise in this video, so... Let's see what our friend has to say about this.
I have so much to say about this, so stick with me because it's probably going to be long. I'm not familiar with any of these influencers, which should tell you something because I have been in the plus size content making space on TikTok since 2020 and just in general from like YouTube and Instagram since 2016.
Okay, and what is that supposed to tell us other than she hasn't heard of these creators? Just because you cover something doesn't mean you know every single creator within those spaces. I mean, shoot, just last week I was covering Remy Bader, and I had not regularly consumed her content at all. And well, quite frankly, I did not put together the name and the face. It wasn't until one of my friends actually jogged my memory and was like, hey, she was in that controversy on the horse ranch. She was in that controversy on the horse ranch a couple of years back. And that refreshed my memory. And I was like, oh, now I can put together the name and the face. And I am certain there are plenty of other creators in these spaces that I cover, you know, fat acceptance, body positivity, health at every size, etc., that I haven't covered yet, or maybe I don't even know that they put out that kind of content. So, by the way, if there is ever anyone you wish me to cover on this channel, just let me know down in the comments below, or you can reach out on my socials and I will try to get to them as soon as I'm able to. But I'm definitely not going to sit here and be like, well, I know everybody in these spaces because I cover it. No, I think we all kind of have our blind spots, especially in social media when we have our algorithms personalized and curtailed to everything, right? Even when you are getting good things in your algorithm that are based on your interests, there's going to be accounts that slip through. There always are. So, for example, on Twitter, I use that mostly for sports Twitter, actually, and specifically Cleveland sports Twitter. And I've been on there for over a decade. And there are still accounts that have slipped through, and every so often will just finally pop up in my feed, or somebody who I'm mutuals with will actually repost it or something. So then I'm finally exposed to it. So even if you are covering it, even if you are interested in it and invested in these things, it doesn't always mean you're going to know every single creator. So I am curious to see what this is supposed to tell us.
Okay, so let's keep that in mind. I am more of like a fat liberation, fighting for inclusivity, that type of creator. If I haven't heard of you, that is probably because that is not your jam. I'm not saying that.
Okay, so it really is that. She thinks that she has heard of everybody in that space. Every single content creator across every platform. Despite the fact that Torrid actually did find these individuals, she thinks because she didn't know who they were, they weren't worthy of this brand trip or something?
That's the case all the time. But if you haven't popped up on my pages in 9 years, you're probably not making content about size inclusivity or fat liberation.
There's a lot of supposition right there that she just said. If this hasn't happened in this many years, then you're probably not doing this. That's a lot of supposition to where she really believes she is the expert on every plus size content creator across all platforms, evidently.
So I looked some of these people up just out of sheer curiosity. This person has in their bio that they are a size 12.
Yeah, but did you also see, I'll pull this back up, the 3 pinned videos at the top are 1.6 million, 5.1 million, and 17.6 million. So it's clear that this creator is getting a lot of views and a lot of traction on their page, which is something that I think a lot of brands are kind of looking for, right? So just because our friend hasn't heard of her, it's very clear a lot of people have.
This person has a pinned video that is talking about, if this is a size 10, I'll try it on. Not saying that this is necessarily her regular size because it looks like they were at like a thrift store. But if you're trying on a size 10, I'm going to guess that you're probably at least like maybe a 12.
Okay, so she would still be in Torrid sizes. Whether she's a 10 or a 12, she could still shop at Torrid. Now, when I worked at Lane Bryant many, many years ago, they would use plus size models for their advertisements. And I know just from everything I ever heard working there, none of those models were actually plus sized. If they were maybe a 14 or potentially at most a 16, but most of them were like an 8, 10, maybe 12, and then they would take the clothes and pin them or clip them in the back to give the appearance that they were filling out the clothes, when in reality they weren't even those sizes to begin with. So it actually appears that Torrid's going in the right direction and hiring people that can wear their clothes, at least as opposed to what Lane Bryant used to do when I worked there. So
this person labels their OOTDs as mid-size.
Okay, but it looks like she would still fit into Torrid sizing. I mean, I know that Fat Liberation hates the term mid-size. They absolutely hate that term, but looks like she could still shop at Torrid. So I'm guessing that's what Torrid was looking for. People who could represent them that also could shop there.
And granted, not all of these influencers had their sizes like readily available on their page. I will say that I believe this was the largest person that I could find that says that they wear a 16 to 18. But what I did notice about a majority of them is that in their bios, they label themselves as curvy, not plus size, not fat, not any sort of like activism sort of speak, curvy.
Okay, and that's a problem because?
Which signals to me that either they recognize that they are too small to be using like the plus size label, or they recognize that they can wear straight size clothing and don't need to be relegated to the few plus size brands that we have. So they use that terminology, or it's that they're not active in the fat activism space, so they don't know what terminology they're supposed to use for themselves. So my issue...
Okay, so let me get this straight. Either they know and are aware and are using the proper terminology because they are not large enough to call themselves fat or plus size according to Fat Acceptance's own terminology, aka the fatness spectrum, or they're completely oblivious and they should have been calling themselves fat or plus sized even if they're not, or they're right on the cusp, which is technically mid-size, you know, the term that they really hate. So this is where it gets so confusing and convoluted to me. So for example, the first creator that she brought up, she mentioned that she was a size 10 or perhaps a size 12, right? Well, would that be considered plus size or not? Because I understand that she can shop at Torrid, but Torrid starts at a size 10. Where Lane Bryant started at a 14, at least when I worked there. I know that they had talked about bringing in a size 12 at one point. I know other brands have started at a 16 or an 18. Where does plus sizing actually begin? Because it does kind of seem to be arbitrary and wholly dependent on the brand and how they choose to label things. So someone who is a size 10, they can shop at Torrid, and Torrid is for plus size according to our friend. So is she plus size and should use the label? Or is she too small and shouldn't use that label at all? And she should just call herself, is she fat? Because she's not even a small fat according to the fatness spectrum. So then should she use the term mid-size? Oh wait, no, we know according to fat acceptance, nobody is supposed to use that term, and they hate that term like vehemently. So what other term is there for them to try to convey their message? Oh wait, curvy. Except they're not supposed to use that either. So what is it? Like, could she just tell us the answer? What are they supposed to call themselves? Are they supposed to call themselves fat? Are they supposed to call themselves plus size? Clearly they're not supposed to call themselves curvy, and we already know mid-sized. Are they supposed to call themselves small fat when that doesn't align with the fatness spectrum? What are people supposed to do? Or does any of this actually even truly matter? But we'll go ahead and believe with our friend here that this evidently does matter. What's the answer? Is she going to tell us the answer, or is she just telling us all the ways that this is wrong?
My issue with this is kind of twofold. Torrid, if you are a brand that carries up to a size 30, why is everyone that you're inviting to an event under a size 18?
But Torrid still carries those sizes. So is our friend trying to say that those individuals weren't fat enough to go on this brand trip?
This is not like a one-off thing. I don't think that I have ever, and this is including plus size brands, it is so rare for me to see an influencer at events that is over a size 24.
Oh, okay. I can think of some right off the top of my head. And for somebody who says she is in all of these spaces and knows all these content creators, I'm genuinely surprised she can't come up with any. Because I can think of, Tess Holiday. How about J-Bay? Oh, we got Glitter and Lasers. We've got Samira. I'm sure there's plenty more, but those are the ones I could think of right off the top of my head without even looking anyone up. And if she's trying to convince us that she is this expert and this is what she covers and this is what she knows, I can't believe she wouldn't even think of some of the largest faces of her movement. Pun intended. But I can't believe she didn't give us any examples. She says it doesn't happen, or it's so incredibly rare she can't think of anyone. Where I literally just thought of 4 people right off the top of my head. And again, I'm certain I could come up with more time, or if I just scrolled through my feed real fast. Oh my goodness. It's getting so chilly where I film right now. Like, it was 70 degrees yesterday. And now it's like 45 degrees with like gale force winds. It's been raining most of the day today. I have got to put on something a little warmer. Hold on. Oh, that's much better.
And I know for myself, like, granted, I only have like 63,000 followers or something on TikTok. I have never gotten invited to an event. And I know people could argue like, oh, you don't have enough of a following to be invited to these events. But one of the people who was at Coachella with Torrid only has 70-something thousand followers. So like...
So what? Is our friend upset that she didn't get invited to Coachella with Torrid? Is that her roundabout way of saying that? Because that's what it's starting to sound like, that they weren't fat enough to go on this trip. They only have a few more thousand followers than I do. That's what it's starting to sound like, that she's salty she didn't get to go. Maybe I'm misjudging this, but let's see.
Like, not all that big of a difference. We're not picking people with millions of followers here. But that also kind of feeds into my second issue, which is people really only push forward voices for the quote-unquote plus-size community that are at the smaller end of the fatness spectrum.
Okay, but didn't Torrid select who was going to go on this trip? Not the people, not the audience members. Like, was there a call-in show where everybody got to vote for your favorite influencer to go to Coachella? Or did a brand make this decision on who was going to go on this trip? And we have no way of knowing if these were the only creators that they reached out to, or if these were the creators who responded that they would go. They may have reached out to other creators who turned it down. We have no way of knowing that based off of what our friend is telling us. So, and at least in my opinion, from a marketing perspective, it makes sense that they focused on the smaller end of their size range. I mean, categorically speaking, there's going to be a large number of women who would fall under that 10 to 16 size umbrella. I mean, isn't the average size woman in America supposed to be a size 16? That's a statistic our friend pulls out all the time. So it seems like they are trying to represent a very large sector of the American population. And the other thing that I'll point out as well, because this is something I definitely noticed when I worked at Lane Bryant, when you had a customer who wore a size 24, 26, 28, they knew Lane Bryant. They were very aware of Lane Bryant. They'd probably been shopping at Lane Bryant for years. They also knew of every other store that carried their sizes, or maybe sizes that went a little larger. However, on the flip side, we had a number of people who were maybe a size 14 or 16, and they were pleasantly surprised to find out that we carried their size. They knew that they had plus size clothing, but they didn't know where it actually started at. So from a marketing perspective, it sounds like they're trying to capture a larger market share. And I guarantee you that those that do wear a size 30 at Torrid, they're very aware that Torrid exists in a size 30. I mean, when I was a size 26, 28, I knew exactly where I could shop because I had done the research to find out who carried my sizes and who didn't. So I do think that that's a big reason why they did go towards the smaller end of their size range. So that way they could show other people that do wear a size 10, 12, 14, 16, that they would have clothes in their size as well. So just from purely a marketing standpoint, I understand why they went for the larger piece of the pie when it came to market share.
How many influencers do you know that are a size 4X, 5X? How many do you know are popular, talk about size inclusivity, and have 500,000 followers?
I literally just listed 4 of them. We've got Samira, we've got Tess Holiday, we've got Glitter and Lasers, we've got J-Bay, although I'm not sure if she's got how many followers exactly J-Bay has, but I know she's got a fair few, that's for sure. So yeah, I can think of a number right off the top of my head. And then for creators that I don't know what size they are, what should I do? Should I hop into their DMs and ask them what size they are and see if they are fat enough on the fatness spectrum for me to follow them? Side note, please don't do that. I hope everybody understands that sarcasm, but I mean, like, legitimately, what would she like people to do? Like, go up and ask them, are you fat enough for me to follow you? Are you fat enough to go on this brand trip? Are you fat enough to call yourself plus size? Like, this whole thing is starting to get so convoluted and ridiculous at this point.
How many can you name? Probably not many. So not only is there an issue with plus size people gravitating more towards the more socially acceptable body types, even though they're plus size, there's also an issue with brands only caring about the same type of bodies.
Okay, but then I have a question for our friend here. I really, truly do. Because according to their own fatness spectrum, a small fat is not the same as a super fat. It's not the same as an infinity fat. Because the higher in size you go, the more challenges and more oppression and more marginalization you face, or something to that effect, right? Essentially, the idea that someone who is a size 16 isn't going to have the same issues as someone who is a size 26. So by their very logic, if the thing that you are trying to do is look for fashion advice or find clothing in your size or figure out ways to style different outfits, aren't you going to try to find someone who is relatively in your size range? I mean, they don't have to necessarily be your exact size, but if a 16 and a 26 are so incredibly vastly different that we need a different category for them on the fatness spectrum, and we have to defer to larger people on who's most marginalized and all of the other buzzwords they love to throw around when it suits them, then wouldn't it also stand to reason that a number of these people are just seeking out someone who is similar in their size range? Because, again, our friend has said repeatedly that the average woman in America wears a size 16. So then wouldn't it also stand to reason that if the average woman in America was looking for fashion tips or styling advice, that they would also seek out someone who was also an average woman in America? I'm just trying to use their logic because none of this makes any sense to me. None of it whatsoever.
Even when they're a brand who's supposed to care about people up to a size 30. So I would ask, one, all of you go follow some creators that are over a size 24. And two, brands. If you are a plus size brand, start diversifying who you're inviting to events and make sure you're including different body types and not just people who are a size 10 to 16.
Okay, so first off, our friend wants us to go follow a whole bunch of creators that are a size 24 or larger, right? But yet she can't give us any examples or a list of anyone or even try to shout out people that she thinks are doing a great job in her space. She can't even list one person that is out there doing a good job with this. We have to just go find it on our own. And again, if they don't have their size listed, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to hop in their DMs and ask them how big they are or ask them what their measurements are? Or what are we supposed to do with that? I mean, if she is the expert in this field and she knows all of these creators, surely she has a list for us, right? So I found that rather odd that we're supposed to go find all these creators and go follow them, but yet she refuses to point anybody in the right direction. We're just supposed to go do it. Okay? And then brands, they're supposed to focus on different body shapes and sizes beyond a size 10 to a 16. Well, first and foremost, a size 10 to a 16 is already a pretty decent difference. That's 4 sizes right there because you got 10, 12, 14, 16. And one of those creators did list that she wears a 16 to an 18. So that's actually a span of 5 sizes being represented. So let me just go ahead and run down the checklist of what brands are supposed to do at this point. So she wants Torrid to go ahead and expand the representation, but they carry from a size 10 to a size 30. So 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. That's 11 sizes right there. And then, well, there's 4 agreed upon different body shapes. You've got hourglass, you've got apple, you've got pear, and you've got rectangle. So you've got 4 different and agreed upon body types, 11 different sizes. And then, of course, we're going to need other diversity as well. We're going to need different representations of skin color, hair textures, different abilities or disabilities. How many people does she want them to send on this trip? Or again, is she just upset that she didn't get to go? That she could have been that representation and they didn't choose her? Because that is the impression that I am getting from this. But she's got some more TikToks on this subject, so why don't we go ahead and check those out and see if this clarifies anything for me. Okay, so our friend is responding to a comment that reads, "So you only respect fat people if they are fat enough for you. Weird." Okay, so let's see how our friend responds to that.
I always forget how angry people get when I try to decenter mid-size voices. And
that was supposed to be an angry comment? Oh gosh, let me reread it then. "So, you only respect fat people if they are fat enough for you? Weird." Was that angry enough, or should I have hulked out a little more? Because I'll be honest, that did not come across as an angry comment to me. It just kind of came off as more of an observation, but
try to put the focus on actually marginalized voices. It really angers people.
Actually marginalized voices? So what, is she going to start talking about disabled people? And not just use us as a crutch to try to give fat acceptance some sort of credibility? Is she going to talk about poor people, homeless people, unemployed people, addicts, people that are literally left behind by society? Is she going to talk about those individuals? Or is she only talking about fat people and their ability to buy clothes?
Here is my point. If you can walk into any store in the US and find clothing for you, you're not plus size.
Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. Because by her very definition, everybody is then plus size. Because nobody can walk into every single store across the US and find clothing that fits them. I'm gonna have to assume she means clothing stores or stores that carry clothes, because to be honest, I don't think I can walk into, I don't know, an auto parts store and find a whole wide selection of clothes. I don't think I'm gonna go into an electronics store and find a whole wide selection of clothes. So I have to assume she's meaning clothing stores. And then, well, this is where things get a little tricky, because we have men's stores, we have women's stores, we have adult stores, we have children's stores, we have in-between stores. Like, nobody is going to be able to walk into every single store in this country and find clothes. Nobody. If my husband is looking for men's clothing, he certainly can't walk into a women's store and find men's clothing. If I'm looking for a dress or a bra, I can't go to the men's section or a men's store. I mean, certainly I can buy t-shirts and sweats and stuff like that in the men's department, but there's certainly things that I need that I can't find in men's stores, that's for sure. Even when I had a really good discount at Men's Warehouse, I had to shop elsewhere. So, by her very definition, everybody's evidently plus size, because no one's going to fall under that category. But that kind of does give me a bit of insight to our friend here, that she believes or has this delusion that someone, let alone enough people, would fall under that category. That if you're straight size, you evidently can walk into every single store in America and find clothes. Doesn't matter if they sell kids clothing, I'm sure you can probably fit into it, right? I mean, that's just the silliest way I've ever heard it be defined.
If you don't have the experience of only having access to like 2 stores and having to dig through shit online to find something that fits you, you are not plus size.
Okay, but I can name a lot of stores that are plus size or carry plus size, way more than 2. I mean, we've got Torrid, we've got Lane Bryant, we've got Eloquy, we've got Rep Dolls, and that's not even including things like Shein or Amazon or Target, Walmart, Kohl's, Macy's. That's way more than 2. And that is way more than I ever had available when I was those sizes previously. So I understand what that's like. And I never found that to be the issue that she has made it out to be. At least personally, it kind of made things a little simpler. I could go to Target or I could go to Lane Bryant. And then for a little bit of time, Old Navy did have plus sizes online, in store, stuff like that. So Old Navy entered the mix for a little bit. So I do have that experience that she is talking about. But I have a sneaking suspicion that my voice doesn't matter anymore since I'm no longer on the fatness spectrum or something, right?
We, at the larger side of the fatness spectrum, do not share the same experience as people who are a size 10, 12, 14. We have wildly differing experiences.
And that, again, kind of indicates to me that I thought that Torrid did make a wise marketing decision. Because, again, our friend has said repeatedly that the average U.S. woman wears a size 16. So, wouldn't it stand to reason that they would try to market towards the average U.S. woman? And that if they did center those larger individuals who wear a size 26 or a 28, those that wear a size 10, 12, 14 might not be able to relate? Because she's saying that on one hand, she can't relate to a size 16 because it's a much different experience than a size 26. So from a marketing standpoint, doesn't it stand to reason that they tried to go for the widest net that they could cast? And they tried to capture the average US woman?
That is what I am trying to point out. I am trying to say that I, as a size 24, 26, do not feel represented by the brand Torrid, who is one of the only in-store brands who offers up to a size 30, which, side note, they don't even really offer up to a size 30 in store.
Wait, so they gave her everything else that she wants. They have her size, they carry it in store, and what? Just because they didn't send someone who was her size on this brand trip, now suddenly she doesn't feel represented by one of the few stores that she claims does carry her size in store? So what is she looking for, this perfect representation? Is she going to hold everything to a purity test as to whether or not it checks all the boxes for her?
Choose influencers who are only a size 12 through 16. And for the people who...
But they chose, according to what she said in her first video, they ranged anywhere from a size 10 to an 18. And now she's chopped that down to a 12 to 16 to make it seem like they didn't have as much diversity as they actually did, that she admitted in that first video.
Who are telling me that I'm the problem? No. You are making this about yourself, and you're saying how you feel represented in this.
But that's not what that comment said at all. The comment didn't say anything at all about how they felt represented or was making it about themselves. It really does feel like our friend is projecting a lot onto everyone else, because it seems like she was the one who was upset that she didn't get an invite to Coachella. She brought up follower counts and how that couldn't be it, so it just must be that they don't like really fat people, right? She was the one who brought up how she felt about her representation. And then she's trying to tell everyone else, or at least responding to this comment, that we're the ones making it about ourselves. It's definitely a choice.
And you're missing the fact that those of us who are more marginalized, if we had access, if we had representation, that would actually benefit you. You would benefit from more inclusion, but you can't step outside of yourself to look at how that would benefit everyone.
Okay, but can our friend give us literally any examples of how that would benefit everyone? Everyone? Is that going to help short people, tall people, people who are very thin? Is that going to help disabled people who need adaptive clothing? Is that going to help people with different types of dwarfism who have different body proportions and have a very difficult time finding clothing or often have to have it specially made? Is that going to help any of those people? Or does she actually just mean clothing for fat people? When she's talking about the most marginalized people, she is only ever talking about the fattest of people. She's never talking about any other group that actually is marginalized. And it just blows my mind, because she's going to talk about, on one hand, marginalized people, but then also assume that those marginalized people might not also be poor, and they just have the money to go and spend all of this money to go to Coachella, to go and spend all this money on clothing, or whatever else that she or others within this group are trying to bring up all the time. They always talk about how they are marginalized in all these ways, and that if they just had access that they could go. But then they ignore the fact that there are many marginalized people who simply are just poor. It's not that they were too big or too small or anything like that. They just simply did not have the money to afford to do it. So I do think it's incredibly rich that she's going to sit there and say that this is only about how we feel represented or how this commenter feels represented, because I'm not sure who the you was in that case, to be perfectly fair. But in reality, she's talking about how this is all about the fattest of them, and that somehow this is going to trickle down to the rest of us without even managing to give us an example or mention any other group that actually is marginalized. So I'm seeing lots of projection from our friend, and it feels like she's getting incredibly defensive over this comment.
You want to make it about you. This is not about you.
Okay, but in that first TikTok, our friend literally made it all about her. She took the idea that Torrid sent those content creators to Coachella and then turned it all around about how she didn't know those people and that they weren't as large as her and therefore they're not as marginalized as her, and that she is doing the work and she is being the activist. So who really flipped it around and made it about themselves? I'm genuinely curious. And then even with the comment was directed exactly at our friend. There was no mention whatsoever of the original commenter about how they felt about anything. So if there's anything getting twisted around here, I'm fairly confident it's coming from our friend here. But we've got one more to check out, and let's see if maybe she straightens any of that out for us. And our friend is responding to a comment that reads, "Or better yet, have you ever been to a multi-day music festival? I've been to Sasquatch and Bumpershoot. When I was 360, I didn't see large people like me at those events. Obese are not. And that's where it cuts off.
I think that people come to the right conclusion, but don't ask the right questions. So the right conclusion to this would be, I don't see a lot of larger people at music festival events. And have I ever been to a multi-day music festival? No, but it's not.
That was the most drawn out, convoluted way you could ever answer a simple yes or no question. Has our friend ever been to a multi-day music festival? No. That would suffice. And it sounds like this commenter has had some experience at multi-day music festivals. And I've never been to a multi-day festival, but I've been to plenty of single-day festivals, the all-day music festivals that go from like 10 in the morning till like midnight or 1 a.m. and you're there literally all day. Definitely been to plenty of those. I have been to so many concerts over the years. It's insane. Used to go to like 1 or 2 concerts pretty much every week, honestly. And so I gotta admit, having gone to as many concerts as I have and having gone to all day festivals, that alone is a huge difference. Huge difference. I mean, I might be tired from going to a regular show, especially when I was younger and I'd hop into mosh pits. I would get kind of beat up at some of those. You come out with random bumps and bruises and just be generally sore for a day or two afterwards. Definitely had a lot of shows like that. But when I would go to those all-day music festivals, man, it would take a day or two easily to recover. And I'm talking not just being sore and tired like you obviously were at a festival all day. It was something I was not used to at all. And I've done my days at Cedar Point where you go at open and you stay all the way till close and you're walking all over the place and you're in the hot sun. But there's something different at music festivals. There just really is. Yes, you are in the hot, hot sun. At least all of the ones I went to, for whatever reason, they were always in the middle of July and August. And I know Coachella, it's in the middle of the desert. And from what I understand, it was reaching 100 degrees all 3 days. So yeah, that's really hot to be standing out in, especially when you're just standing in the sun. There's very little shade to be found pretty much anywhere. And anywhere there is shade, it's at a premium. So if you get up and move at all, congratulations, it's gone. You're never seeing that again. There's so much walking that I learned my lesson the hard way at concerts over the years. And I learned I had to start wearing comfy shoes and wear like my Nikes or some sort of athletic shoe to be on my feet for as long as it was going to be. And even then, I'd come home with blisters. My feet would just absolutely kill me. And you clearly put in a lot of steps at these festivals. I mean, the last one I went to, now, granted, it was quite a while ago, but it was 2003, and that was Ozfest. And I definitely showed up as soon as they opened up the gates and went over to the second stage as soon as they started playing for the day. So I stood there for a good, probably 4 or 5 hours, just standing there on an asphalt parking lot where the second stage was set up with the sun beating down on you. And it was like 90, 95 degrees and like 80% humidity. It was miserable. And I was like 19 at the time, much more resilient to that kind of stuff than I am now. That's for sure. I got so sunburned. I was covered in blisters. I was exhausted. And then we still had to, hoof it back and forth to where all of the food and the vendors and the water and everything else were. Oh, all the restrooms and everything. They were essentially on the other side of the venue. So anytime you wanted to go from the second stage to where any of that was, you had a good solid 40 to 45 minute walk round trip. And then if you wanted to go from the second stage to the main stage, you're talking a good 15-20 minute walk. And then again, from the main stage to any of the vendor areas or get concessions, we're talking another lengthy walk and another walk back to where you were. So you just did nothing but walking. And at least at the venue that I was at for Ozfest, you had either your choice of pavilion, which insanely expensive, and I've never actually paid for pavilion at that venue at all because of how insanely expensive it is. Or most of us, we end up on the lawn, and the lawn is exactly that. It's a lawn. It's a grassy field. That's it. You're not allowed to bring in blankets. I think now they do have chairs available that you can rent while you're there, but they didn't have that at the time, and they completely banned anyone bringing in blankets, chairs, anything like that for these giant festivals. So if you wanted to sit, you had to find someplace on the grass to sit, and well, at least the 2 to 3 days before Ozfest that year that we went, it had rained, so well, everything was a total mudslick, and nobody wanted to actually put their butts on the ground to actually sit in that mud. That was not ideal. So then, okay, your other options were find a bit of concrete or rock to sit on, or you might find like just something you could perch on. There was no place to actually sit unless you were willing to sit in the mud. And then the actual concerts themselves, where some of them you might be packed in like sardines. Some of them you might have a mosh pit open up right behind you or right in front of you or right next to you. Or, I don't know, while you're in there like sardines, the whole crowd starts to sway back and forth. Or the whole crowd starts to swell and try to rush the stage all at once. Each and every one of those situations has happened at so many concerts that I went to over the years. And when those things happen, the name of the game at that point is you have to stay on your feet. The worst thing you can do in that situation is fall to the ground, because unfortunately people have gotten trampled or stampeded, and there have been very terrible and unfortunate outcomes at way too many concerts over the years. So the best piece of advice that I can give people is you have to be able to stay on your feet if you're going to be in that crowd. Otherwise, you're definitely going to have to stand way further back so you're not packed in there like sardines. But that might also mean you might not be able to actually see the show depending on the venue that you're at. So there's a lot of variables that go into play for just even a single day music festival, let alone, I could only imagine the logistics that would have gone into had we actually camped there for a day or two. So that commenter does have a fair point in the idea that they do at least have experience of going to these festivals, which our friend just admitted that she does not, and also the experience of not seeing that many large people at these festivals either. But let's go ahead and see what our friend has to say about these, especially now knowing that she has no experience with this.
It's not because I physically can't go, or I'm like, oh, it's too hot for me to go. I can't walk that far, because these are the reasons that you're assuming fat people don't go to these things.
Well, I will definitely admit, I think that there is a good reason for concern for that. And not just for fat people, but for everybody at these events. I was genuinely surprised at the concerts and the music festivals that I've gone to over the years, how many people ended up needing medical attention or needing to be seen by paramedics. And typically it was the all-day festivals that a lot of people had issues with, because eventually the dehydration and the exhaustion and so many things would catch up to people who were in excellent physical shape. So her being so flippant about it, well, I've never done it, but I'm certain I could physically handle it no problem. When I've watched 20-year-olds who are in way better shape than she could ever dream of not be able to actually handle these festivals. So if she doesn't have the experience, I'm not really sure how she can be so confident in her answer.
The right questions that I would be asking are, what kind of representation do we see for fat people to know that they are welcome at these events?
I'm going to guess the general admission. You know, when they put tickets up for sale and anyone can buy them with the money, that's what's telling people that fat people, or really anybody with the money to buy these tickets, that they're welcome. Do they need a separate welcome committee? Do they need their own invitation? Because I thought general admission meant that it was admission for the general public. Oh, wait, unless those tickets really do say no fatties allowed somewhere on them, and I never saw it. And all of the times in my 20s when I was at my heaviest and actively going to concerts all the time, they just went ahead and let it slide. Oh, that's right. I didn't need an invitation to go to concerts or festivals at my heaviest. I didn't need representation to know that I was allowed to go. I saw that bands that I wanted to see were coming to a show, and so I exchanged money for goods and services, and they gave me a ticket, and then they let me in. I, again, didn't realize I was supposed to get a separate invitation to all of those concerts years ago. And, I mean, I gotta be honest, concerts, they were some of the most welcoming spaces I have ever been in my entire life, especially when I went to concerts for local bands. I mean, eventually you start knowing the guys in the band, you start knowing people that go to the shows routinely, and it becomes friends and family over the years, right? But everybody that I had the pleasure of meeting when I went to these concerts, and maybe I just got incredibly lucky, but they were some of the most welcoming individuals I ever met in my life. So this idea that we should ask what representation we're using to make fat people feel welcome. If you have a ticket, you should feel welcome. So the way she almost worded that, it makes it seem like fat people need a separate invitation.
Case in point, what I'm talking about with Torrid, if they are only sending sizes 10 to 16 there, how is someone who is a size 26, 28 supposed to know that they are able to go and not have people fucking stare, make fun of them, yell at them that they shouldn't be there, whatever?
And does she have any examples of that, or did she just make up a straw man out of thin air right there? Does she have any examples of that actually happening, that once you got to a size 26 or 28, that suddenly people were going to laugh and stare and point and say you don't belong there or whatever else she said? Does she actually have any examples of that happening, or is she just working solely off of her own fears at this point and just projecting her own concerns and worries and fears onto everyone else? That if she were to go to this concert because Torrid didn't say it was okay for her to go and pay for her trip, that suddenly she's not going to be laughed at and mocked at. Because that's the way it sounds to me. The way that she has just worded all of that, how would somebody at a size 26 or a 28 know that they could do that? It makes it sound like she believes that someone who is a size 26 or a size 28, A, believes and agrees with everything that she says, and also evidently doesn't have enough intelligence to figure this out on their own. They need somebody to show them or tell them. That's what it sounds like to me.
Because I know fat people.
Okay, she knows fat people. Does she mean she knows all fat people and she is now speaking for all fat people in general? Because, I'll be honest, she never knew me when I was fat. And I clearly had a very different experience and thoughts surrounding going to concerts when I was at my heaviest, so...
I have been fat my entire life. As a child, I had to wear, like, adult clothing because there weren't things that would fit me. Like, this has been me for 39 years.
So is that her way of saying she is projecting all of what she is feeling onto everyone else? And therefore, everybody must feel the way that she does? Or is she accounting for the fact that other people might feel differently than she does? I understand that she has this experience of her life, but I also have the experience of my life. And even at my heaviest, I felt incredibly differently than how she is describing it at this point.
Fat people do not go to spaces where they don't know that they will be welcomed.
And I think she should only be speaking about herself. Because again, even at my heaviest, that never stopped me from going to new places. It simply didn't. Now, to be fair, at my heaviest, I did stop going places like, for example, Cedar Point, simply because it wasn't worth it to spend all that time and money on a ticket and driving out there if I couldn't ride any of the rides safely. Yeah, it wasn't because I wasn't welcomed. It was because I couldn't safely ride the rides. But everywhere else, you never let it stop me. I mean, actually at my heaviest, that was one of the more active times in my life for my social life. That's when I was going out all the time to concerts. That's when I was going out all the time and playing poker like 4 or 5 nights a week. And I had lots of friends. I had lots of people that welcomed me everywhere I went. So I understand that she might have those fears and that might have been her experience. But this idea that she knows fat people and therefore she can speak for fat people, she's clearly not speaking for me at my heaviest, that's for sure. And I'm venturing a guess that she is only speaking for herself and trying to generalize this and project it onto everyone else, and hoping that there's going to be someone that does relate to her enough that agrees with her.
If it doesn't feel safe and welcoming for us to be there, we ain't going. Not to mention the other compounding factors, such as places like Coachella are really expensive. Fat people make less money than their thin counterparts. Did you know that?
Oh, so now she actually does want to talk about poor people, but only fat poor people, huh? Does she not seem to understand that there are many people that might be poor or come from a working class background that come from all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different ethnicities, all sorts of different circumstances, all sorts of different body sizes too? I mean, pretty much my whole life, I've been either working class or poor. There was a little brief shining moment there where my dad did get us firmly into the middle class for a little while. And every time my husband and I have tried getting to that middle class, everything keeps just getting more and more expensive. And here we are. This is my life. And losing all that weight did not suddenly put us in a different tax bracket. Did not fundamentally change the material outcome of our lives at this point. Has it improved my health? Absolutely. Has it improved the quality of my life? Damn skippy. But this idea that, oh, well, fat people are more likely to be poor. So our friend will bring up poor people, but only when it suits her argumentation. She actually doesn't care about marginalized people. She actually doesn't care about poor people not having access to things unless they're poor and fat.
Were you aware of that? Barriers to accessing clothing. If I'm going to a festival, I'm going to want to wear something that looks similar to everyone else so that I don't stand out, not only because I'm fat, but because I'm wearing something that no one else is wearing, like not even close.
I'm not sure our friend understands the point of Coachella then. Or maybe I don't. I'm not sure. Because to my understanding, in years past, and as of just recently, this last Coachella, what was coming through my For You page, everybody was trying to show how different their outfit was, that they had been saving this unique piece for just such an occasion, because they didn't want to look like anyone else. I thought that was the whole point of festival clothing, that you could wear whatever the hell you wanted. If you wanted to wear a costume, great. You want to dress up like an alien? Go for it. You want to wear some crazy avant-garde piece that would not be appropriate pretty much anywhere else? That's the time to do it. It's not about conforming and looking like everyone else. It was about standing out and trying to be different. At least to my understanding. Like I said, either she doesn't understand it or I don't understand it. One of us doesn't understand it, because this doesn't make any sense to me.
If I can't access clothes in my size to make me look similar to everyone else, why am I going to go and feel uncomfortable? You're not asking the right questions.
Not asking the right questions for our friend. Because the only question that was actually asked at all in this comment was whether or not our friend has been to a multi-day music festival, which she already answered no. So everything else that she has said after this, what gives her any credibility or any leg to stand on when she is talking about anything going on at these festivals then? I mean, I at least have some experience. It's a long time ago. I will grant you that. It's over 20 years ago at a lot of these festivals. But to be fair, I had a lot more stamina for that kind of stuff when I was younger. I mean, I'm in fantastic shape for my age, for sure. And I feel a hell of a lot better since I've lost all the weight. But I'm also to the age where it starts getting to be 9:30. We better start wrapping this up. I have bed to attend to, guys. I'm getting tired. I didn't sign up for this. Okay? So I will fully admit that. But I at least have enough experience at these festivals to know our friend has no clue what she's talking about. And without the experience of going to any of these places, I'm not really sure why she feels so confident in telling everybody how wrong they are.
Showers, bathrooms, when I get there, are they going to have enough room for me to move around?
And this tells me everything I need to know right now about our friend. She couldn't even be bothered to look this up. It's everywhere. People showing accommodations, the VIP ones, the general accommodations. Most people have enough room because they're sleeping in their cars or sleeping in their own tents. Most people aren't having some luxurious VIP experience there. Most people are roughing it, camping, okay? And their showers are general access camping showers. So like the ones that I saw, at least, if you've ever been camping in the state of Ohio and been to any of their restrooms and bathhouses, they were the exact same showers that I saw there. So I don't know if that's ubiquitous across the board, because it kind of almost feels like it does, because that's California and this is Ohio, but she could have easily looked that up if she really wanted to know. But she's over here making such a big deal about, well, they have to think about this and they have to think about that. Well, congrats. There's a lot of information out there if she really cared to educate herself about this. If she was really wanting to go to this festival so badly, she could have educated herself, bought a ticket, and gone. She could have been the representation she is proclaiming everyone else provides for her.
These are the actual questions that you need to be asking as to, are those a deterrent? And is that what's keeping fat people away? Not that we can't walk, not that it's too hot. You're getting to the right conclusion that you don't see a lot of fat people there, but you're not actually looking at the reasons why.
Those might not be the reasons why for her, but I guarantee you that those are going to be reasons for a number of people. There were plenty of times where I thought about whether or not things were worth it just based upon how sunburnt I was going to get, how chafed I was going to get, how many blisters on my feet I was going to get. Was that truly worth it? And there were plenty of times where I decided it wasn't going to be worth it. So I'm not really sure why she feels so comfortable speaking on behalf of every fat person ever in existence, it seems. That couldn't possibly be a reason why at all. It would be because they didn't have big enough toilets or big enough showers. When our friend hasn't even gone to a festival like this to begin with. So there we have it. Our friend Mighty Morphin Fash and her response to Torrid sending brand influencers to Coachella. Or evidently sending the thin mints and the skinny minis and not sending enough fat people like her on a trip she really wanted to go to, it seems like. But maybe that's just me. Let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? I'm genuinely curious and I love reading all of your responses. That is where we will leave things today, and I thank you so much for joining me. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye! Yes, hiya, beautiful. Oh my, did I wake you from your beauty rest? Hi, sweetheart. What do you think? Should we go watch the Guardians game? Yeah, what do you think? Maybe? What do you think? Bye!